Yo guys, what is going on? It is Invin here, and today what I wanted to bring to you guys is a video on, let's be honest, a pretty hot topic right now in New World. And this is going to be talking about the Ice Shower and the Grab Well, particularly in PvP, but also this will apply to PvE as well, although most people are not complaining that way because extra damage against the mobs is always welcome. However, in PvP, these two tricksy abilities, particularly with their respective ability perks, have been quite the item of contrast recently, whether it's on the forums, in-game, on live stream comments, on YouTube comments, anything like that. You guys have all been asking me my opinions and, you know, putting in the comments, should it be nerfed? What do you think? Other people disagreeing, other people agreeing. And if you go on pretty much 90% of the forums posts that have this on the suggestions, something like Ice Shower in the title or Gravity Well, and some posts specifically discussing this, you're going to get about a 50-50 split. Some people absolutely love it and think that it makes a skill gap. Other players think that it is simply just a trap, particularly when the two abilities are comboed together in the war environment. It makes for an unbreakable deal. So there's kind of a contrast there, so I wanted to cover my thoughts on it. It's going to be a fairly quick video, just going over some of the pros and cons, but I did just want to address this, let you know what I think, and also get your guys' opinion on this, because I think this is something that is pretty big at the moment in New World with the meta and how everyone's using certain weapons, like the Ice Gauntlet, Void Gauntlet, Great Axe, Warhammer, etc. And it is probably something that AGS are looking into, so getting as much kind of opinions on this as possible is going to be a good thing. Now, before we fully jump into today's video, if you haven't already done so and you would like to see more New World content, whether it's tips, tricks and guides, comments and discussions like today's video, or whether it's going to be updates and latest news from the game, then make sure you are dropping a subscribe down below, as I do upload every single day covering all of that kind of good stuff. And if you do go on to enjoy the video, don't forget to drop a like as well. And without further ado, let's jump into it. So firstly, I want to cover the Ice Shower. Well, the Ice Shower is, of course, one of the most renowned abilities in New World for the changes it has already had. But for those of you that are not kind of up to date with it, maybe you're watching this video, you haven't played for a few weeks, or you're not on the forefront of PvP, you're more of a PvE player or something along those lines. Ice Shower is essentially the ability where you create an ice wall, and with that you can get an upgrade to it which applies a rend, and also this now slows players. So you used to be able to jump through it, sometimes you could dodge through it, now it's almost like a brick wall. You hit that and you get stuck in place, and you actually get stuck there for about 6 or 7 seconds with a rend applied to you, which is actually pretty lethal. Now, this is a great ability in terms of cutting off sections of the map if you use it strategically. If the enemy team clumps up and you are able to get an ice wall on this to capture 3, 4, 5 or more players, it can be a really good thing, especially with a 10% rend on there as well. They're going to be taking additional damage. It can really turn the tide of some fights for yourself and your team, which is why it's so popular. Now, conversely, if you're on the other side of that, you might be trying to get into a fight and suddenly an ice wall comes down, you can't move, you're taking a ton of damage, and obviously usually this is paired with an ice shower as well, and then grav wells, etc., which we're going to move on to. So this can be quite a tricksy ability. Now, some of the pros of this, like I said, it's great for utility. It's great for positioning in wars and cutting off certain positions or chokehold points, particularly the doorways on the way into the fort is something that springs to mind as a really good use of it. Also, you've got kind of your rotation cut-offs with this as well, so it can be used in a very utility-based sense. However, it does also do a good amount of blocking. Like I said, it gives you that rend there, so it does then allow for a follow-up of big damage bursts from something like your Ice Shower, your Ice Shards, all of those good things, which can really do a hard-hitting amount of damage, particularly in wars when you've got other abilities and debuffs and stuff applied to the same player. And additionally to this, the ability has a pretty good accuracy as to where you actually want it to go. You can get a quite nice little streak on there, so if somebody's chasing you, you can 180, put it down, and you will be able to capture them in that wall, which is pretty nice. And like I said, now you can't dodge through it, you can't jump through it, you can't crouch through it, lie through it, any of that. You literally just get stuck in the spot if you get hit by it, so it can be pretty lethal. Now, some negatives about this one then, well, obviously, if you're on the receiving end of it, it can be a pain in the backside. It is a very difficult ability to escape, especially if you are already fighting with 1, 2, 3, 4 other players in a big clump. which, you know, you should generally try and avoid, but sometimes in a war situation, that's how it goes, and then you get ice showered, and that's that, so they can be pretty tough. Also, if you're in a 1v1 and it's kind of even fight, or maybe you're slightly winning, if they get back up from a mage, or themselves have an ice shower, this can turn the tide of battle. Maybe that's a skill-based thing, but it is, again, if you're on the receiving end, not my favourite thing. Now, also, what you will notice is that the rend this applies can be stacked with other versions of rend and other debuffs, of course, which means that this can actually be a very lethal combination, paired with the ability to no longer be able to move, and of course, cutting off sections of the map for 6 to 7 seconds can be a little bit of a nuisance at times. So, as you can see, it's quite 50-50, and if you are using it, which most teams are, pretty much every team is because of how good it is, you're going to get some use out of it being a positive, and of course it gives a speed buff to team members with the right upgrades, which is great. But if you're on the receiving end of it, particularly in that moment in time, particularly when both teams are using it, it can be quite annoying. Now, the Gravwell, for those of you again that don't know, is the ability that sucks you towards the centre. It is from the Great Axe, and it draws enemies towards the centre of it, keeps them inside the kind of radius, and then explodes, dealing void damage. Now, you can also get the upgrade ability perk Insatiable Gravity Well, which is where this will happen for a second time. If you capture an enemy within inside the main Gravwell, it'll send a second pulse of damage from the player's body, which can mean you can get a double burst of this damage, and it can be pretty powerful. Now, with that as well, obviously the Gravwell is kind of one of the best utilities for bruisers in terms of, again, similar performance and job to the Ice Shower. You can cut off certain choke hold points, you can cut off certain rotations, you can hold players in place for a number of seconds, although with the Gravity Well, there is sometimes, it doesn't always work 100%, and I am aware of that, but you are sometimes able to get out of this with certain movement abilities. However, like I said, not foolproof. The Gravity Well also does give you the ability to drop a significant amount of damage in there, which is really good, and of course can provide a huge benefit when it's used as an engagement tactic, followed up by things like Maelstrom, and of course other abilities like Path of Destiny, Sundering Shockwave, that can really come in and hammer down on these enemies. Now, that's a few of the pros for that one. A few of the cons are that, of course, if you get caught in this, it can be tricky to escape, and sometimes charge on the Great Axe does not work to get out of this, which is where it's iffy. Things like the Rapier generally tend to, same with the Fire Staff, their movement abilities are 90% of the time working through this, but again, it's still not 100%. Some of the other cons of this are that you're pretty much stuck in it if you do get caught in it, and you get paired with other abilities and debuffs, and like I said, generally you'll get not just one Gravwell, but multiple onto that same position. Now, as you guys will be able to see from the footage in the background of today's video, this is from one of my most recent wars where both of these abilities are getting used frequently, and as you can see, sometimes it works in our favour, sometimes it's against us, but I just wanted to kind of get a general opinion on what you guys think of these. My overall opinion is that the Ice Shower is a pretty good ability. I quite like the way that it works. I like that it cuts off areas and it gives mages a little bit of escape if they are using light armour. However, this obviously does mean that they have an ability where you can keep you still for a few seconds and then deal a huge amount of burst damage too. So maybe the time reduction that it lasts for in terms of how long it keeps you stood still for should be reduced to find a middle ground where it can keep you for just a few seconds, but then you are able to move even if it's moving slower, rather than just being stood still and having to tank all of these abilities, which if you're a medium bruiser or another light player, you've got not much chance of, and even some heavies do get deleted pretty quickly. Now, as well with the Gravwell, I really like the way that this functions. I like that you can get players when they're grouped up, suck them into the middle, and then drop abilities on top of them. It's kind of like if you have the better positioning versus the enemy, you really can get an advantage with it. However, I would like it if the movement abilities would be able to get out of it if they were meant to, or they just don't work so that we know that that isn't the case. In my opinion, the better option would be to allow people to get out with these movement abilities because, for example, charge, it means they can't use it as an engage or an escape after this, so if they get Gravelled for a second time, you are stuck, but it would mean that a more consistent approach to being able to escape these would be great. Now, the damage on both of these things, obviously the Ice Shower is more of a debuff, it does do a bit of damage, but it is more paired with other abilities. The Gravwell itself does do a lot of damage. Now, again, for those of you that didn't know, it is void damage, so if you have got Abyssal Gems on your armor, armor, this can reduce it, as well as kind of the void absorption perks. But one of the main things they could do, of course, is reduce the damage of this, or increase the damage, reduce the slow, etc., and kind of work it around that way. They did try and do this a couple of patches ago, and I actually don't think that the Gravel is in too bad of a spot. Mostly because both teams are using this very frequently, so there's no one team that is getting an advantage through it solely. It is kind of across the board, which, yes, it might be a powerful ability, but at least everybody has access to it. And that's kind of the same thing for the Ice Shower. So it's kind of just dependent on the length of the stuns or the slows or the lock in place, and of course the damage as well as the debuffs that they apply and what you would like to see from there. Personally, I think the Ice Shower timer should be reduced, but the rend should be kept the same, as well as leaving you to walk slowly afterwards. The Gravel should have the initial pull that it has, and then again give a slow when walking out, but maybe be less of a binding maneuver and more something that people can dodge and walk out of just slowly, so that they have got a chance to escape that as well. However, that would maybe make it significantly less good than the Ice Shower, so they do kind of want to be balanced. It is kind of a very easy tipping point where it could easily go one way or the other, which is why I wanted to discuss it today, explain what these abilities do, how people are using them, and my thoughts. So, of course, do let me know your guys' thoughts and feelings on these abilities down below in the comments. Like I said, a lot of people have been kind of weighing up what they want to do, and it is a very hot topic. Lots of people wanting nerfs to the Ice Shower, lots of people wanting nerfs to the Gravwell, some people just wanting the Insatiable Gravity Well perk being nerfed, which could be an option as well, so maybe let me know your thoughts on that one. And of course, then what about the viability of other weapons? If these were changed, would it make it better in your opinion or not? I personally think we would see it opened up to more variety of weapons, but these abilities would still be pretty good, especially in the war situation, as they are really for crowd control and a bit of damage, debuff, etc., which is what the entire war purpose is all about. If you can debuff, control, and damage the enemies, you're gonna win. So they fit nicely into that war build, and in my opinion, work quite nicely whilst they're both powerful, because it means you've got a mage option and a melee option that can both do damage. Maybe it's just that we need to see some of the other abilities from, say, for example, Dex, something like the musket shots, or maybe even the blunderbuss now coming in there with some good CC. The blunderbuss has got some really interesting abilities, and once this is more actively used, it'll be interesting to see what people's thoughts are on these versus things like blast shot and net shot. But again, we'll see that as this develops over the coming weeks. I just wanted to bring this hot topic to everybody's attention and kind of get a few thoughts and feelings in the comments. So do be sure to go down below and let me know your thoughts there. But other than that, that's going to be it for today's video. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Hopefully it's giving you something to think about. And, you know, maybe you've got your own opinions. Maybe you're not quite sure, like me. You're kind of in between where it's okay as it is because they're both powerful, but maybe it could do with changing, just not 100% sure how. Then that's cool too. So other than that, guys, that is going to be it for today. So I'd like to thank you for watching, thank you for your time, and I will catch you again very, very shortly on a brand new upload. Take care and peace.